Hello again, I'm Zach Hicks, Royal Purple sports editor, alongside Kevin Cunningham, assistant sports editor at the Royal Purple, and Sean Tehan of UWW-TV. Sean, how's your Friday going so far?
Oh, it's going well, Zach. Day after Valentine's Day, eating some leftover cookies. So just can't complain.
All right, sounds good. Kevin and I are going to start off this podcast with a little wrestling talk, but before that, just a reminder: Warhawk Weekly comes out every Friday. We released it a little late last week, had some technical difficulties, but everything's figured out now. So just a reminder: follow Royal Purple Sports on Twitter. It's RP_sports, and also Sean, Kevin, and I have a blog, collegesportswriters.com. And you can follow us on Twitter. We basically tweet about anything and everything with sports, NFL, NBA, lots of college sports. So if you're looking for something with come tournament time, check that out. But we're gonna start the show off with a little wrestling talk. The wrestlers are in Eau Claire this weekend for the WEAC Championships. It's the first time in the history of the championships that they're going to be at a dual meet. And I was talking to Coach Fader about this, and he said that he's not sure how he feels about it yet, Kevin. He thinks he might like it, he might not like it, he hasn't decided yet. Sure, if they get that first place victory like they did last year, he's going to have a pretty positive outlook on it. But hey, last year they won the tournament. It's the first time in 14 years that a team other than UW Lacrosse won. Kevin, just talk a little bit about what we can expect this year from the WEAC tournament and the number one seeded Warhawks.
Well, first off, we're ranked 4th nationally. Lacrosse is 5. Part of the reason that is because we beat them earlier in the year.
Right.
So we've beaten them twice in a row, I guess, from last year's WEAC championship and now this year. Then Stevens Point also comes in at number 10 nationally. As far as the matchups between us and Lacrosse, we got Jake Fredrickson, who's 5th nationally at the 141-pound mark for Lacrosse. They have Adam Sheely, who's 1st nationally at 141. Now, these two kind of have a history. Starting back in 2011, Sheely beat Fredrickson at the 133-pound weight class. And then again last year in the 133-pound weight class, Sheely beat him. So he's the champ 2 years running, and now he's 1st nationally again, except this time they're at 141 pounds. So that's definitely a matchup to look forward to. And earlier this year when we beat Lacrosse, Fredrickson didn't wrestle Sheely. Sheely didn't actually wrestle in that meet. So it's the first time this year they'll be wrestling against each other, and the first time in their new weight class. So that'll definitely be an interesting watch. Anthony Edgren for the Warhawks is ranked 10th at 285 pounds. As far as Lacrosse goes for 285-pound weight class, Billy Mayer, he's ranked 5th nationally, so that'll be another top 10 matchup. At 197 pounds, we have Shane Seifert. He's 8th nationally. Lacrosse doesn't have anyone in that weight class ranked, and the only guy that we should match up with in that class at 197 pounds comes from Stevens Point, Dustin Wozniak, and he's ranked 5th nationally. 133 pounds, we have Grant Sutter. He's a contender. He's not ranked nationally. Just looking through the roster here, no one else is ranked nationally at 133. 149, Elroy Perkin. No one else is ranked there either. 157, nobody else. And Tyler Becker, he was a contender throughout part of the year. He's not anymore. He's at 165 pounds. Oshkosh has the 2nd-ranked national guy at 165. Gonna butcher this name, but Nazar Klochitsitsky.
Nice.
Something like that. But what are your expectations just going into this?
Well, I think the spotlight is going to be on Fredrickson and Sheely. It always has been. But also, don't forget about Stephen Point's Jordan Cust. He's also in the 141. He's ranked 9th. And the interesting thing about these three guys are they've been wrestling each other their entire careers, but this is the first year they're all wrestling each other in the 141-pound range. I wonder how that's gonna be different because their bodies are different. They're all obviously 8 pounds, heavier or so, and who knows? Maybe Sheely has lost a little bit of quickness going up in the weight class. Maybe Cust is a little stronger, or these guys all know each other and how they wrestle. So the biggest challenge is going to be, Coach Fader getting Fredrickson ready for this, because it's a big strategy thing, and Fader is kind of the strategy guy. The assistant coaches do a lot of hands-on things, but Fader is kind of the mastermind behind the game plan. And Cust was in the finals just a year ago. So Fredrickson hasn't been to a WEAC championship final yet. He's been a semifinalist the last 2 years at 133 pounds, but he hasn't been able to get over that hump and get into the finals. So I would like to say, hey, if he gets into the finals, that's going to be a goal accomplished for him. But knowing Jake Fredrickson, I had the opportunity to do an interview with him earlier this year and get to know him a little bit. I know that he wants this title, not just for himself. In fact, especially not for himself, especially for the team, because he's a team player and he really is looking out for his teammates. But Kevin had a chance to talk to Jake Fredrickson, and we'll play that audio for you right now.
Start with team expectations. How do you like your chances at repeating as WIAC champs?
I think they're pretty good. We're going into it as number one seed, which I don't think we've never really done that while I've been here. So it just increases our chances, gives us a good warm-up match into the championship round. I think against Lacrosse or Stevens Point.
As far as the dual meet format goes, can you talk a bit about that? Because I know this is the first time in conference history that they're using that in the championships.
Dual meet is just where you wrestle each team beforehand, and then how you do during the season is just the same thing as a tournament format. But I think it's the 5th and 4th seed wrestle each other, and then we wrestle the winner of that, and then on the other side it's the 6th and 3 against the 2, and I think it increases our chances of winning because we've already beaten them both in dual meet settings, so I think it'll help us.
Gotcha. Now for you individually, I know you've moved up a weight class this year, and so has Adam Sheely of Lacrosse. Can you talk a bit about the history you two have had and what your expectations are for this time around if you face them in the tournament?
We wrestled in high school. We wrestled probably 3 times my sophomore year, 2 times last year, and every time, even since high school, it's gotten closer and closer. I think in high school he beat me by 5 or 6 points, and then sophomore year he beat me by 1 or 2, and then last year he just beat me in overtime. So it's getting closer. I'm feeling more confident. I have a lot more ability and skill than I did last year. I have some different shots that I feel like he won't be ready for, and I'm just feeling more confident than ever, I think.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't realize it went back that far. I just looked at the last couple years in college.
Yeah.
Before last year, Lacrosse had taken the last 14 WIAC titles. What would it mean for Whitewater's wrestling program if you guys can pull off back-to-back these last 2 years?
I think if we get this back-to-back title, it'll just show that there's a new dominance in the WIAC, and it'll just increase our recruiting, and we'll just bring in better recruits and keep getting titles. I think it just shows that we'll be the most dominant team, and Whitewater will be the place to be to wrestle in the WIAC.
So obviously, as you can hear, Jake, he's ready for this, and being one of the leaders for this team, he's really looking forward to it. One thing, Kevin, that I've been impressed with is just the maturation of this program as a whole. I mean, a few years ago, you wouldn't see, the men's wrestling team competing with Lacrosse. Lacrosse is always top 5 ranked, but look, now we're ranked number 4 in the country, and there's gonna be 3 top 10 teams squaring off in this tournament, 2 top 5 teams, and we're looking for our first, back-to-back WEAC championship since we did it in 1989, 1990, and 1991. So Kevin, I guess, what do you think? I guess Gibson and all these other guys who are contenders are going to bring to this tournament.
I think looking at the rankings, you can tell that we might not have the most guys ranked nationally in the top 10, but we do have, 4 former contenders throughout the year. So I think that's what has probably given us the leg up this year. As far as just looking at the history of the WIAC, obviously when you win the WIAC the past 14 years like lacrosse has, and now you got a new top dog like us coming in, I'm sure they're going to be, wanting revenge. Obviously that didn't work for them during the regular season, but this is the WIAC title, and we've got a shot at taking them down 2 years in a row.
All right. Yeah, so just a reminder, we have the number 1 seed for that, so you can watch online. It's on Sunday. The guys are going to be wrestling, so tune in. You can get that feed from UWWsports.com. So hopefully we have another WEAC championship in Whitewater and back-to-back titles for the wrestling team. That'd be awesome. Now we're going to throw it to women's basketball. They just won conference. Sean, you were there. Talk a little bit about just, I know it's a couple days old, but that was quite a game on Wednesday.
It really was. Coach Carollo's team is playing really excellent basketball right now, and Coach Carollo won her 200th game in the process after winning in really, really remarkable fashion. The Warhawks, they're up 50-49, under 2 minutes left. Caitlin Thill goes to the free throw line to shoot 2, makes the first free throw, misses the second. Courtney Kumro grabs an offensive rebound. It's her 10th rebound of the game. She earns her 6th double-double. She puts up the ball and she gets the foul. She gets hacked and she makes the basket. She makes it a 5-point game. She's made her last 22 free throws. Courtney Kumro is a definite All-American, mainly because she's clearly, in my opinion, the best player on this team, and also she's one of the best players for one of the best teams right now in D3 hoops. It was an incredible team effort.
Speaking of which, women finally cracked the top 25. Kevin, talk a little bit about us finally getting on the map and national scene. We're first in our conference right now. Let's say we do win the WEAC tournament. I wonder what it's going to be like for seeding, because obviously a lot of the coaches, a lot of whoever does these polls, even though we're first in the WEAC, beating Stevens Point twice, who's been ranked this whole season, apparently they don't think we're a top caliber team because we're only ranked 24th. Yeah, we cracked the rankings finally, but we're still only ranked 24th. Talk a little bit, Kevin. Do you think this team is, deserving of even a higher ranking? I know we kind of talked about the rankings last year, but what's going to happen to the seeding if, I guess I should note that there aren't really numbered seeds technically in the national tournament for Division III, but it does go into play who you're playing in it. So just kind of talk about, Kevin, do you think, we're going to kind of get the short end of the stick for seeding?
I think we definitely will get the short end of the stick, like you said. We are ranked 24th. I'm pretty sure the brackets go in the NCAA tournament in sets of 4. So I'm sure we will get one of those top teams in our bracket because we are all the way down at 24. Teams like DePaul, Calvin, Hope, kind of talked about them last week, and our shot at possibly defeating them. Obviously we'll talk about that more when the time comes, but we talked about Kumro, and Sean talked about how she's arguably one of the best girls in the country, and that will definitely bode well for us against those top teams that have those big girls down low that just clearly dominate everyone that they've faced so far. As far as our ranking at 24, we're still behind Stevens Point somehow. We have the exact same record. We've won our last 7 straight. So, I'm not too sure how that's really working. As far as other win streaks, just heading into the WIAC tournament, no one in our conference has a bigger win streak than 2 games, and we're at 7, so we're clearly the hottest team right now on the women's side.
Yeah, both the women are really peaking right now. And talking to Coach Kroll, she said, this is a really good group. She's really excited, and yeah, they haven't lost since beginning of January. They haven't lost since losing to Oshkosh back in January and to Superior in back-to-back games. But what Coach Kroll said, though, she doesn't really care about the D3 Hoops rankings. She had nothing but good things to say about D3Hoops.com. But what she did say was she cares about the regional rankings. Right now in the Central region, coming into this week, the Warhawk women are third in the Central region in the rankings. I mean, they're ahead of Oshkosh, who was number 4, and obviously Oshkosh won't trump Whitewater because of that. And then Superior was number 6, and Stevens Point was number 8. And Coach Kroll said they finished in the top 6 in the regional rankings by the time the NCAA tournament comes around. She feels pretty good about their chances.
One quick note about the NCAA tournament. I know we're kind of looking ahead. The WEAC tournament still hasn't happened, which, hey, by the way, because of Wednesday's win, as long as Warhawks are winning, they're playing at home. So that's going to be great for them. Just think about, the whole travel with being a student athlete, having class, having this. I mean, that's a lot.
And also a big point, too, that I want to make is Whitewater women haven't lost a home game this year. And they obviously play a lot better at home. Our student section at UW-Whitewater has been great. It's Donovan Gregoire is a guy who's really done a lot of work, and him and his buddies, and it's expanded. It's becoming a bit of a nightmare for opponents to play at the Cashel Gym because the students have been a lot better than what I've seen in the past in terms of rowdiness.
Yeah, definitely. It's been something that's been hard. And just one quick note before we make a little bit of a transition here is that, we have been kind of talking about the top-ranked teams, and they do have a center or someone that's, fairly dominant.
Mm-hmm.
We have that too. So does it help us with a matchup? Yeah, I guess, because Kumaro can go against, whomever she's facing.
Mm-hmm.
But also, that might kind of hurt us because that's where our offense comes from. That's where our rebounds come from. If they shut down Kumaro, we could be in trouble.
Courtney Kumaro had just amazing couple past games on Saturday. 29 points, 16 rebounds, 3 blocks against Superior. She was purely dominant.
Right.
And then had another double-double against Oshkosh on Wednesday with 15 points and 10 boards as well.
Yeah, I mean, women play at 7 p.m., 6 p.m.?
6 p.m.
6 p.m. Saturday, so make sure you go out and check that. They're playing against a River Falls team that's rather dilapidated, at least compared to their team last year, which, speaking of which, their men's team, who won the WEAC tournament, is also playing the men's team tomorrow at 4 p.m., and, this is a team that last year was right up there with Whitewater and Stevens Point. Sean, how come River Falls isn't an elite team this year?
I've been looking into this, and it's kind of funny just because they do have some good players in 6'8" senior center Zach Peterson, 6'4" senior forward UT Udo, but they also lost 6'7" senior forward Ollie White. After the first 9 games, he was averaging about 12 points a game, shooting nearly 50%, grabbing about 7 boards a game. Really one of the better inside players in the WIAC. Obviously, they're missing him right now. River Falls has got some talent. They got a good shooter in Eric Smith. He's shooting, I believe, 43% from outside this year. And then Zach Peterson, for being 6'8", the guy's a 90% free throw shooter, and he's 59% from the field. So that he's going to be a handful.
Definitely, and if you know one thing about the Warhawks, Luke Noble does a terrific job down low. Darnell Harris is starting to develop as a low post presence, but we have had trouble, in the paint at times this season. I'm hoping Luke Noble and Darnell Harris can help against River Falls. But Kevin, when you're looking at the Warhawks, we're going to be the number 2 seed in the WEAC tournament. Just talk a little bit about what you're going to see from this game, because Pat Miller, he wants to make sure there aren't any injuries, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you're finishing your regular season and going into the postseason with some pretty good momentum.
Yeah, I talked about the women's and their streak of 7 in a row. Much like the men's, we've won 6 straight, and the best win streak outside of us is, again, 2 straight from Stevens Point. So, we're clearly the hottest team, and you were talking about wanting to keep that stride going into the tournament. The last game we played against River Falls ended in overtime. So, just because River Falls is 3-12 in conference this year doesn't mean it's going to be a cupcake game. As far as looking ahead to the tournament, we're going to be the 2 seed for sure. Stevens Point's going to be the top dog, but do we have what it takes to take them down? I think so. Guards like KJ Evans, Cordell Young, they just pose as matchup problems. I think Cordell Young can get to the lane at will when he wants to. KJ Evans is only 6'3", but he seems like he grabs 6-7 boards a game. And he just posts people up, and as a shooting guard, that's just kind of rare to see. Sean, if you want to talk a little bit more about it.
Well, the thing is, tomorrow I was actually at practice yesterday for the men's practice. KJ Evans actually sat out. He's got a bit of a leg injury right now. He may not play tomorrow. He suffered an injury in the win at Oshkosh. So we're going to see a lot of Pat Suter. I think we're going to see a lot of Reggie Hearn also off the bench. We may even see Charlie Fisher, a guy who was on the national championship team a year ago. But I wouldn't be surprised if Coach Miller fits him in. But going back to Whitewater and how hot they are, I was talking to Luke Nobles, talking to Pat Miller, and Coach Miller said, we can beat anybody. I feel we can beat anybody, and I agree because everything's coming together. Darnell Harris is continually getting much better every game. You can see it. You can just see the transformation, and it's very exciting. This is going to be a guy that's going to be averaging 20 and 10, I think maybe as early as next year for the Warhawks. He's that good. He's really that talented, and he's buying into it, and that's a big part of the process is when you buy into the coach's philosophy. And then talking to Luke Noble, he said the sky's the limit for this team. They know how good they are, and they're playing like it, and I definitely agree. Stevens Point, I think they're beatable, and I think Whitewater can really expose them. Especially, I don't think Stevens Point's going to want to play this team a third time.
Yeah, and see, the thing is, Stevens Point, obviously the basketball rivalry between these 2 schools, men's and women's, has been storied. But I don't know. I'll be honest, when we played Stevens Point the second time this year, I thought we were going to win because we had kind of rebounded from a couple bad losses, and we were playing really good basketball, really inspired basketball. I think that came right after that huge win over UW Stout, if I'm not mistaken. So I felt like we had a lot of momentum going into that game. Now, if just watching how the season's played out so far, I'd have to say it that Stevens Point is by far the favorite in this tournament. Now, does that mean,
and rightfully so,
right? And does that mean the Warhawks can't beat Stevens Point? Of course not. We all know they can. And hey, quite frankly, Stevens Point isn't playing their best basketball either. They lost 2 of their last 3, I believe, and their last game was in overtime against Stout, which is to say UW Stout's a very good team. And quite frankly, don't be surprised if you see them win the tournament because I could totally see them upsetting a couple teams. They're very talented, but like you said, Whitewater's won 6 in a row.
Yep.
That they're on fire, and regardless of the losing to Stevens Point twice, and Stout's a scrappy team. This team's hot, and this team I think is the most physically talented team in the conference. I just don't see players like Cordell Young and Darnell Harris on any other roster. Mm-hmm. So,
and a big thing for Point also, they lost their leading scorer, Tyler Tillema. I think he's done for the year. He got hurt in that first game against the Warhawks. Kudos, though, to Stevens Point. They're able to – they have such a good coach there. They have such a good staff and such a good program that they're able to play without him. This is a kid that was averaging 18 points per game until he looked like he had a pretty bad ankle injury against the Warhawks in December.
Okay, so just make sure you check out, men's basketball tomorrow. It's at 6 p.m. 4 p.m. Sorry, women are at 6, men are at 4. Tomorrow we got that doubleheader. It's gonna be your last doubleheader of the year, so make sure you go and check them out. And that's against River Falls, both teams. And now we're gonna talk a little bit about NBA trade talk. There's some names floating around there. The trade deadline is next Thursday. Kevin, talk a little bit about this whole Ben Gordon situation. It's kind of interesting. The Bobcats traded Corey Maggette for Ben Gordon, garbage for garbage deal. Both kind of lazy players.
Just trade them for a washing machine.
Yeah. You know, they have pretty ugly contracts. Just talk a little bit about Ben Gordon as a player, at least.
I mean, I liked him when he was at Detroit. Obviously, Ben Gordon's, right now he's averaging 12 points per game, 1 rebound, 2 assists. He's not doing too great this year. I'm not sure what the huge hype is.
He's instant offense off the bench. I think that's the big thing with Ben Gordon, and he's got to go to a contender. He can't be on garbage teams like the Bobcats and the Pistons. He's got to go to somewhere where he's going to be a key contributor. Heck, I mean, the LA Lakers, what if they try to make a deal for him? They need something. They need to find something, and Kobe's not playing as well lately. I'm just exploring the possibility maybe they bring in Ben Gordon.
Okay, well, here's the problem I have with him going anywhere right now. He just had a huge apparent meltdown in practice and totally ignored he had some problem with the coach. The coach told them to do something. He's refused to do it and walked out apparently. So anyway, that when with a contender, you're looking at who you're going to trade. Let's look like a team like the Spurs. You have to have someone on this that's going to come in for the Spurs that is going to be a team player, fits into the concept. Now, Ben Gordon might be able to act out in Charlotte, but when he gets to a team like that, you know what? I don't think that would happen.
Greg Popovich would not.
Right.
He would not
No,
accept
and Tim Duncan, Manu, those guys wouldn't let that happen. But the biggest problem with this trade is the contract. What are they going to do with this contract? It's like $14 million this year. I mean, this guy is way overpaid, and I think he only has 1 or 2 years left. So, but I can't see the Bobcats wanting to eat his contract. I mean, the only thing I could see in a realistic trade is someone giving up a first-round pick, nothing high, but maybe a Los Angeles Lakers. Hey, we'll give up a first-round pick and an expiring contract, and you eat half his salary or 2/3 of his salary. I think that's what's going to happen. If you want any kind of asset back for Ben Gordon, you're going to have to eat a chunk of that contract because, quite frankly, he's not worth what he is.
He's not. No, not at all.
Another guy being talked about. 2 other guys. You got Josh Smith, Eric Gordon, Kevin. Where do you think could be some landing spots for those 2 guys?
As far as Josh Smith goes, I mean, I'm a Celtics fan, and supposedly he kind of flirts with the interest of joining the Celtics.
Kevin, I swear you're the fan of the most random teams ever. I appreciate it. I really do. You're a Titans fan. You're a Buckeye fan. You're a Celtic.
No, Buckeye football, Duke basketball.
Yeah, unbelievable. It's amazing. Whatever. It's a free country. Go on.
Yeah. So anyway, I do like my random sports teams. You got the Colorado Avalanche, got the Napoli and soccer. Just all over the map.
Who's your baseball team?
White Sox.
Okay. Jeez. All over the map.
Definitely all over the map for me. Jay Smooth.
Smooth.
With
a V.
Smooth.
Not
okay.
like that.
Right. Jay Smooth. So anyway, as far as a possible trade destination for him, I definitely think a contender. I think he's, at his prime now. I know he's in, his upper 20s, or is he 30 now?
No, I don't think he's 30 yet, but I could be wrong.
So, I definitely think he wants to go to a winner after being to, multiple first-round exits with the Hawks the last few years. I personally, as a Celtics fan, I wouldn't want to see him go there. I think he's going to want a huge deal, and that's going to be the main selling point to me as far as taking him on.
See, for me, Josh Smith, he looks great on paper. He looks great maybe when your team plays him, but ever since the Bucks played the Hawks in that playoff series 2 years ago, I really don't like him. And I disliked him. I promise I disliked him before he said he hated Milwaukee and it's boring and there's nothing to do there. He is so lazy. You just watch him. You watch him the entire game. He'll get the ball and do his thing, and, yeah, he can dunk and block shots, which I love. I love his skill set, but I don't love his motor. His motor's terrible. And on top of that, he plays lazy defense, and he thinks his shot is way better. He shoots threes. He should never shoot threes. I don't think he's ever shot like 32%. before that. But
No, the thing is with Josh Smith, he is so talented in many areas, and yeah, I agree. He's a bit lazy, and he's been a bit of a head case in the past. The guy can do practically anything. I think a perfect fit would be Chicago, the Chicago Bulls. Playing for a coach like Tom Thibodeau and playing for, he's a winner. He's still winning in Chicago even without Derrick Rose.
yeah,
Having him on a team like that and a coach that's going to push him, I mean, he'd be a great fit in San Antonio too. This guy just needs a kick in the butt, and he needs a kick in the butt from two of the best coaches in the NBA, and I think Chicago would be a great fit for him.
Definitely
As much as I hate to say it.
Side note too, Coach Thibodeau, definitely Coach of the Year in my opinion.
yeah. All right, so let's throw things over to Bucks trade talk now. I think there might be a big shakeup here, guys. Jennings is possibly unhappy with his contract situation. Ellis is my first name that I would trade. I would trade him for I don't care what. I just do not want him on this team. I don't get why we have 2 point guards. I don't care what anyone says. Ellis is a point guard. Jennings is a point guard. They just are. But, hey, Ersan might get moved. I mean, this might be a pretty big blow-up, Sean.
Yeah, the thing is with the Bucks, Brandon Jennings and Monte Ellis, they're talented in their own ways, but they're the same player. They're not quite point guards, but they're not big enough to be two guards. Honestly, if they trade one of those two, obviously one of them is going to stay as a point guard of the Bucks, and then the other one you got to trade for a big guard. I mean, we had an opportunity. The Milwaukee Bucks had an opportunity to draft Klay Thompson a couple of years ago. Klay Thompson's averaging about 17 a game, and he's one of the better shooters in the NBA. He's going to be a good player in the NBA, I think, for a while, and we had an opportunity to draft him. I remember I wanted him. He's a 6'7", big guard, and honestly, I think you trade one of those guys. I don't care who. Trade one or the other. Trade him for a big guard because that's what they really, really need.
Yeah, one guy that has his name surfaced as far as a big guard. There's actually a lot of shooting guards on, available. Supposedly, you got Evan Turner. Please no, John Hammond.
Oh, come on. I have an
No.
Evan Turner jersey.
No.
I have an Evan Turner jersey.
And I'm sorry, Kevin. You can talk to Kevin about how good Evan Turner is. He's probably his least favorite player in the NBA. Eric Gordon is available. Huge contract. I think the Bucks, if they're gonna get a big shooting guard next to Jennings and or Ellis, which I just don't really like either of them anymore. I do like Jennings still, but I just think he's unhappy here and he's gonna be gone.
I think Jennings wants to go back to LA, and he probably wants to go play for the Lakers. He's an LA kid. I don't know if the Lakers will be able to afford that, but that's obviously going to be he wants to go to a big market.
This is one problem with the big market thing. I'm gonna go on a tiny rant here. You cannot just pick. Okay, let's think big market. New York Knicks. No, they've kind of have their point guard situation figured out.
They have an identity.
Chicago Bulls. They have a guy there too, Derrick Rose. Clippers. No, they actually have 2 point guards there. Lakers was a possibility for a really long time, but now they have Steve Nash. That's a 3-year deal. Okay, I'm sorry, they are not going to throw $12 million at Brandon Jennings. So, okay, those are your 3 biggest markets. So now where do you go? Dallas. I think he's going to be a Dallas Maverick. I don't know if they're going to trade for him, but apparently they are interested in him. Whether or not they have the trade chips to do it, but if they don't trade for him, they're going to go after him in free agency. They're going to get Mark Cuban will throw big money at him, but you know what? Mark Cuban also has been known to take back a bad contract to get an asset.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be surprised if Jennings and Drew Gooden go to Dallas. But, as far as Ersan, Kevin, I know you kind of are interested in the Raptors. The Raptors and the Nets really want Ersan Ilyasova. I don't think the Bucks want to trade him, but they have John Henson behind them, and if they get the right offer, say DeMar DeRozan for Ersan Ilyasova.
DeMar DeRozan would be a nice fit in Milwaukee. That's a 6'7" guard, real athletic. I'd really like that. I'd really like that a lot.
Kevin, what do you think about the Raptors? I don't think the Nets are at all a very good trade candidate with the Bucks, but what do you think about the Raptors? I think the Raptors have some first-round picks also.
I do like the Raptors team. I think that moving Ersan there would generally interest them. As far as DeRozan goes, I'm pretty sure he got a contract extension over the offseason, and he's having a career year now, and I think that they plan on keeping him there. So I'm not sure if that's too hot of a player that they want to dish out.
I'll take Ross.
Well, Ross is.
The Bucks were really interested in him.
Well, I mean, think about it from their standpoint. They want a forward that isn't named Bargnani. They're trying to trade Bargnani for Boozer.
Andre Bargnani doesn't want to be in Toronto.
And that's fine because he's not that good of a player. Quite frankly, he's a three-point specialist, and he's 7 feet tall, and he can't average any more than 7 rebounds a game, and he's 7 feet tall. He's the tallest guy on the court, and he can't. So anyway, they want to get rid of him, understandably so, but they need a power forward, and so Ersan, okay, that makes sense. But then, if they don't trade Ross or DeRozan, it's like, okay, let me get this straight. You have a 2 and a 3 spot. Ross, Gay, and DeRozan. You do not need all 3 of those guys. You can get Ersan. I say Ersan, Ersan, Gay, and one of DeRozan and Ross is better than Ross, Gay, and DeRozan.
I think Ross could be a possibility. The other thing with Dallas is I'm pretty sure O.J. Mayo wants to test the market again this year. What would you say about Mayo, Jennings, possible deal there?
First of all, I was looking at Mayo's contract. It says he has another year. I don't know if that's some kind of option, but I was also under the I also thought he had a 1-year deal there, but I'm pretty sure he has another year after this year. Jennings for Mayo, I would not be happy with that because I think what the Bucks have to do is rebuild, and I think a Jennings for Mayo deal is just like a Bogut for Ellis deal. It's a lateral move. It doesn't go. It's not going to make you a championship team. It's not going to make you a team that sucks and that is going to acquire lottery picks or high lottery picks anyway. You're going to be a seed or 14th pick.
I wouldn't be surprised though if O.J. Mayo would come to Milwaukee. I mean, his brother Todd Mayo does play for Marquette.
Right.
I don't know how their brother relationship is, but it's just I could see the possibility. That's a good hypothetical, but I agree with you, Zach. It's a lateral move. Nobody gets better. Nobody really gets worse. O.J. Mayo he was in such a good situation in Memphis, coming off the bench, being that offensive pop off the bench. O.J. Mayo's never going to be a star guy. He's going to be like a Ben Gordon, a bigger version of Ben Gordon.
Okay. As far as NBA talk, I think we've pretty much covered everything, especially with the Bucks. But let's talk a little bit about some Packers news today. Charles Woodson, former Defensive Player of the Year, he's going to be released by the Green Bay Packers. Sean, what do you think about this news?
It's a bit sad. Charles Woodson, I'm an Ohio State Buckeye fan. My parents went there. My grandparents went there. Charles Woodson tore up Ohio State at Michigan, but he is the one guy from Michigan, and maybe Desmond Howard too because of his Packer career, his Super Bowl MVP award. I loved watching him play. He was awesome. He could do so much, but the fact of the matter is he lost a step this year. He lost a step in coverage. That's why they moved him to safety. I like the Packers' youth in that secondary. Obviously, they don't really have that rock. They didn't have that rock in Woodson anymore. He didn't even play 9 games this year, and we did fine without him. The Packers did just fine. But I'm thinking a lot of teams are definitely going to give him a pretty favorable offer.
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be a market for him. One thing as far as this market goes is since Darrelle Revis is supposedly going to be, an option for teams to trade for, I'm interested to see will he find a home after Revis does. Mm-hmm. But then again, they are different players at this point in their career. I remember 3 years ago, it was the classic debate: who's a better corner, Woodson or Revis? Ever since that point, Woodson's fallen off as far as his coverage skills go, but as far as his overall just ball skills, being able to just pluck, to read quarterbacks and stuff like that, you can still play him in a zone scheme. I think you can still play him in the box, which is really his home at this point. He's just a smart football player. Kevin, what do you think the market for Charles Woodson is going to be, and do you think the Packers secondary will have to add another guy, or do you think they'll have enough depth?
I think through the draft they'll definitely add a guy at some point, probably in the middle rounds. As far as the market goes for Woodson, I think that a lot of teams will definitely be interested. He is 36 years old, though, so it's not going to be, top dollar. It's not going to be a long-term deal. But I definitely think a lot of teams can use a Charles Woodson on their defense. I think he's, generally a good player still, even at 36. Sean, where do you think he can end up?
The thing is with Woodson, he would be an excellent presence in a locker room. And a couple teams that come to mind right away, I have 9 teams listed in front of me. A couple teams that come to mind for me the New England Patriots and the Denver Broncos. Both these teams got torn up by Joe Flacco in the playoffs. I mean, more specifically, the Broncos, I mean, yeah, I know they have Champ Bailey. That's another old veteran they have, and they're going to look to get younger. But it could be a possibility. Their safeties got torched by Flacco. They made some horrible angles against the Ravens, and they're the ones, I think, in my mind, that blew that game against Baltimore. They should have won that game. I mean, Peyton Manning threw 2-3 interceptions. The defense played atrocious. New England, they need a veteran presence, I think, on that defense. That would make a lot of sense. Baltimore Ravens, maybe losing Ed Reed, he could be the guy, and also they lost Ray Lewis. He could be that voice of that defense. He could be that leader, along with Terrell Suggs and Haloti Ngata, guys who may be better suited, out of the limelight. Another team, the New Orleans Saints, worst defense in my opinion last year. And then lastly, I got to go with the Minnesota Vikings because they always tend to steal Green Bay Packers away. I'm talking about Ryan Longwell, Darren Sharper, and that Favre guy. So those are the 5 teams I'm thinking that Woodson may go to.
I'd like to add one more team to that, and talking about contenders and a team that needs some help on defense. What about Atlanta Falcons? I mean, that's a team people don't really think about as a contender, but they're certainly trying to be a contender. They need to add pieces to that defense. Now, if I'm Charles Woodson, I see those teams and I see Atlanta. Personally, I'm not going to Atlanta. I think the Vikings would be a great fit for him. You got a young safety in Harrison Smith.
That'd be quite the duo.
And the Vikings also are always looking, like you said, to add Packers. But also, I mean, the Vikings have a really nice young team and a team that's only going to get better as the years go on. Woodson could be a mentor for Smith, and he would work really well with them. And I also think I love Denver, and I actually do I think Denver is a really good fit for him too.
The only thing that worries me is just Champ Bailey being there already. I don't know if they're going to want to have 2 guys who are way past their primes in that secondary alone.
That is a good point. Just looking at Twitter, a lot of people are upset about the Charles Woodson thing. But being a Packer fan, you should have kind of seen this coming.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, expect us to extend Clay Matthews and Aaron Rodgers this offseason. That's something that's kind of inevitable, I think.
Those are the 2 guys we need to have.
Right.
Those are the 2 guys they absolutely need to have.
And on top of that, Greg Jennings, I don't know if you saw this, his house is for sale. He's gone. He knows he's gone. Everyone knows he's gone. There's been a lot of talk about that during the season, especially with Cobb, his emergence. And speaking of Cobb's emergence, people are like, oh, I feel like people are more accepting of, okay, Cobb, he's really good, so he can't push Jennings off the door, will be fine. Well, people remember, we have Casey Hayward now, and Casey Hayward had a very nice year. Now, is he Charles Woodson? Of course not. Is Randall Cobb Greg Jennings? No. I don't think he's nearly as good of a route runner. I think
those guys have 3 years combined of playing experience.
Right.
So that's
right.
huge.
Right. But the thing is that these guys are the future of the Green Bay Packers at that position. You look at Nick Barnett leaving, Desmond Bishop. This is just how the Packers operate. They draft all the time, and then they replace, the aging veterans that are getting a little pricey. And it's sad because, Woodson has done so much for this team. Mm-hmm. But, hey, he won a Super Bowl here. I think he understands it's a business. Just final thoughts on Charles Woodson and maybe Packers offseason in general.
Just the offseason in general, I'll just talk about that. Obviously, Woodson's been cut, Driver retired. I think A.J. Hawk will get cut, so I got to get a new Packer jersey now.
I'd be so happy.
Yeah, I'll probably get a Randall Cobb jersey now because I have a jersey. Might as well upgrade. Whatever, that's a different topic. I digress. I think the Packers will obviously let Jennings walk. He's going to get some kind of stupid offer from somewhere, and I'm afraid that may be Minnesota too. Woodson and Jennings could be going to Minnesota together.
I think Jennings is, I don't want to say a lock for Minnesota, but I think they'll be the number 1 team going.
I think another team, though, that Jennings may go to that people are not really talking about and may be surprised, St. Louis Rams.
That's nice.
Sam Bradford needs a top target desperately.
I hadn't thought about the Rams. I thought about the Cleveland Browns, but I don't know why he would sign with them. They'll try, but he won't because they need so many weapons on that offense.
I will say this also. The Packers, they need to keep Jermichael Finley. They do. He's still young. They got a 1-year deal. I think they need to keep Finley.
Okay, I think that's for a different day because I completely disagree. But we'll
Just
see.
Look on your face.
Yeah. I wish you guys could have seen that look I just gave Sean. But yeah, okay, so that's it for Warhawk Weekly. Just a reminder, follow us on Twitter, RP_sports, and also follow our blog, collegesportswriters.com. Check into royalpurplenews.com for articles on sports, lifestyle, news, arts and rec, business, and opinion. We have everything covered there. So just check out Royal Purple. And for assistant sports editor Kevin Cunningham, UWW-TV's Sean Tehan, I'm sports editor Zach Hicks, and thanks for being with us.